All right, so time for another project. And this one I'll kind of consider a safety related thing, although it's mostly just an upgrade. And the plan for today is to work on LED brake lights and turn signals. So I was driving behind our coach a little while back, kind of at dusk. And as I was driving along, I was seeing all the clearance lights at the top and marker lights and everything that we've installed LED lights on. Were nice and bright, easy to see, but the tail lights and the brake lights and the turn signals were really dim. And so I think by upgrading to some LED lights, I'll get brighter brake lights, turn signals, and parking lights. So that's my plan for this project. I'm also going to replace the backup lights. We don't use them a whole lot, but it might be useful to have good backup lights when you're parking in a parking spot or a campground after dark. So just going to basically get to the point where all of our exterior lights are LED. So turn signals and hazard lights require a different type of flasher. So I've got two types of flashers here. There's two different flashers in the coach. One of them is for the turn signals and the other one is for the hazard lights. I had some trouble finding the right part numbers and things for the hazard lights and the turn signals. So I basically just bought two, one of each of the numbers that I was seeing. And so I'm going to see which one of these work, or if both of them work or not. I might need to get another one of these flashers as I start working on the project. I'm pretty sure this one is going to work for the turn signals. I'm not sure about this one. So this is a 2-pin and this is a 3-pin. I looked at the flashers that are in it now, and both of them are 2-pin or 2-blade connectors. So I think this one has an external ground, and I think one of these pins is going to be a ground connection. So take a little bit of investigation once I get into it. Once I know exactly what part numbers and parts are going to be the right ones, I'll make sure I put links and part numbers and things in the description. Both of these flashers are located under the dash, and so I'll need to probably take off the bottom part of the dash to get in there and get to those flashers and find a good ground connection and things like that. As far as the LED lights, so I'll just show you a couple of them here. These are 1157 LED lights. These are the types of lights that we'll use for the brake lights and the front turn signals. So they have two elements, one for parking and one for the turn signals or hazard lights. I have some 1156 bulbs for the backup lights. So they just have one element because the backup lights are just on or off. So I think those are the main things to get us started. So next, I think I'll dig into the dash and see about replacing these flashers. Actually, what I may do is put in the lights first so that then I can test the flashers and see how they work. Just a note on why the flashers need to be replaced. If you use the standard flashers that are in it with the conventional incandescent bulbs, there isn't enough resistance in the system through the bulbs themselves with LEDs to make the flash interval right. So usually if you just install the LED light bulbs, you'll either get a really fast flash when you turn on the hazard lights or the turn signals, or they may just not flash at all. And so with these newer flashers, they are built so that they will work with LED lights and still flash at a normal rate. So a little bit of background there, but I hope after I'm all done, I'll have much brighter lights on the front and back, and turn signals will be much more noticeable, and the brake lights will be brighter and more obvious. So I think it'll be a nice upgrade overall and some nice safety improvements. All right, so I got the lights installed. I cleaned up the sockets. They're all working, but when I put the covers back on, they're still pretty dim. And what I realized is there's a heat sink on the front of this. The LEDs are on the back. They're intended to, I think, reflect off the inside of this housing. This is not a very good shape for reflecting, but I think if I hit it with some chrome paint and paint the inside of this with a nice reflective chrome, I think it will give me some better light kind of coming out through the lens. If not, I may end up getting some different types of LEDs to maybe direct more of the light out the back. But they were dim before, and that was with an incandescent bulb that was facing, you know, directly out through glass, through the lens in the back. But the LEDs were not as bright as I expected. And so I'm gonna try this and maybe try some more things to make sure I get good lighting and good visibility out the back. Okay, so I don't know if it was very easy to tell in the video, but standing behind the coach in kind of twilight, it was pretty noticeable the paint, the side that we painted with the chrome paint. It's not perfect because normally you'd have more of a parabolic curve in the mirror behind the light, but just getting more light reflecting out of that housing here, even though it's this weird kind of inset dish shape, is I think a pretty good improvement. So definitely going to paint this one chrome also. I may eventually, so the backup lights seem pretty good, but I may eventually replace the brake lights with a different style. But overall, I think this is a good improvement. I'm glad I'm taking care of this at the same time. All right, so I have taken the bottom of the dash off, and I think your experience may vary here because mine had this gauge I needed to disconnect. There's a screw on this side, a screw on this side, a screw inside of the ashtray, and a couple of screws into the bottom. But who knows what's happened with your coach over the years, so I have to figure that out to get it apart. But once I got that off, I was able to get better access underneath the dash here. And so on this left-hand side of the steering column, I found this flasher, and it makes a nice little tick sound when I turn on the turn signals. So I know this is the one for the turn signals. And you can see it's got 2-wire connection. So I think that'll plug in nicely to this one, and then this needs to be grounded. So I'll find a spot to do that. And then right up here, kind of attached to the back of the dash, is the one for the hazard lights, and it doesn't pull far enough down here, but I can reach up there and unplug it, I think. That might take 2 hands. And let's see, I'll get this out and see what it looks like. There we go. So this is the flasher for the hazard lights. And you can see this one is also a 2-pin. The other flasher I got is a 3-pin. So it may be that I could use this same type of flasher for both of these. I'll probably do a little experimenting to see if this one would work in both places, or if this one will work. But again, I'll include the part numbers of the right flashers when I'm all done with the project. But found both the flashers, have good access to them, so it's just a matter of installing the new flashers and see how it works. All right, so we've got the flashers installed, and I'm just going to show how everything is working. So we've got the hazard lights plugged in, so when I turn on the hazard lights, we get both of those flashing normally. I'm missing the little green thing on the right hand side there, but all that is good on the outside. I've checked that all out. And then for turn signals, same thing, right hand side, nice normal flash rate. Check the left hand side, nice normal flash rate. It looks good on the outside. Makes a nice tick on the inside here so I can hear it, and all of that looks good. So we'll talk a bit about the flashers. That took a bit of work to get those all figured out and working, and then pretty much wrap things up. All right, so I just showed the flashing lights and everything's working great. Getting the flashers figured out was actually one of the harder parts of this project. So I did have to sand out my sockets for the lights. I had to find some different LEDs to fit in the front. I spray painted chrome on the inside of the rear housings to get better lighting. So there was lots of kind of unexpected things that needed to happen. But the flashers took a little bit of work. When I did some research, I found this part number for a Grote part number, and I'm not going to talk about it because I never could get it to work. And no matter what I did or how I did it, it never caused any flashing to happen. So we're going to forget about that one. I'm not going to recommend it. Don't buy it. Maybe mine was defective. I don't know. But I got these ones to both work. And they're basically both the same part number. So this one says EP35 on it. And I got this one at my local hardware store when that light blue thing didn't work. And this one says CF14. It also says JL02. But when I got it on Amazon, it said EP35. So I would say that both of these are EP35s. The connection diagrams on them are the same. So I think they're probably the same. They're both rated for the LED lights. All of that worked out fine. So when I put them in the same position here, you can see the connections line up the same. I've got my ground wires coming off the same terminal on both of these. And for this one, I'll start with this one. This is the one I'm using on the turn signals. The turn signals are on the left-hand side of the steering column. And the connector there just plugs right on. I have my ground connection, and it works great. The other one is for the hazard lights. The hazard light connector is on the right-hand side of the steering column. And for this one, I needed to actually swap the terminals. And I don't know why exactly. Obviously, it's just wired backward from the kind of L-shaped connector for the turn signals. But swapping, so I used some just jumper wires here. Swapping those around makes it work great. I have my ground connection. And so having this essentially the same flasher for both works fine. I get a good rate of flash, and they both seem to work very well, and makes it pretty simple. So I'm going to go outside and just show what the lights, the LED lights, look like flashing on the outside. I'll need to put things together and clean it up and all that, but I don't think there's any significant details there. So I think this pretty much finishes up this project. And hopefully, if you do this, it goes a little smoother than mine, but you never know with a 45 or 50-year-old vehicle. But I'm very happy with how the LED lights look, and they're nice and bright. So I think this will be a good safety upgrade.